etc., etc., etc. Hello, everybody. Welcome to an interesting modelling company pop-up live tonight. And as you can tell by the fact that I've slapped on the latex, that we're going to be doing some painting tonight. Now, I'm not kidding when I say previously on the interesting modelling pop-up live, that's where we were last week. That's about as much as I haven't done in the last week. So we need to get a wiggle on and get some more paint on this Panzer. Having said that, having had a week to kind of come back and have a look at this and kind of peruse my my efforts, I actually quite like how this color has gone down on this, and it's left a kind of patchy appearance. I've just noticed a bit's broken off there, but never mind. So yeah, we'll slap some more of that XF93 on there tonight. But tonight I'm actually going to do something with the tracks, and I'm going to do the cheat that Mig Jimenez does, and I think Martin Kovac does it as well. And in order to get a nice metallic effect on our Panzer IV tracks, we are of course going to paint it with XF57 buff. I will explain. So, goodness me, this is an old tin, jar, bottle. It's Wednesday. So let's give that a good stir. Oh, that is quite lumpy. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to drop. Oops, we're going to drop a good amount. Sorry, that's the cat charging around the office there. We're going to drop a good amount of lacquer thinner in there, just to, yeah, that's good. So over to the desk camera, and we what are we going to use? We're going to use the big. We're going to use the big fender. Now the fenders have not been touched since last week when I did that kind of update on them. So they have been left pretty much waiting for use. So let's just have a quick. Yeah, they're working. Just checks the compressor is switched on. And this paint has become a little bit gritty and a little bit silty, which is what happens with acrylics, with the Tamiya acrylics over time. But a little bit of. But what we're going to do is give this a bit of a shake at the same time. You can see the crusty, dried up paint from the jar tends to flake off, so we'll clean that surface off a bit. So that should be a bit better now. Yep. So I'm actually going to pour that directly into the jar. Horror, horror, horror. I'll do. A little bit of back flushing. That's probably going to be a bit too thick, but yeah, it's definitely a bit too thick. So a little bit more lacquer thinner. A bit of back flushing. Yeah, that's quite nice. So it's just literally, we're going to start off by painting these tracks in buff, which, as you can see, applying it over the bare plastic in almost identical colour is always a smart move. But had I been a little bit more prepared, I would have probably given these a coat of grey primer, but yeah. So you're probably wondering, but if you want to get a nice metallic effect on these tracks, why are you painting them buff? Well, we will try and expand upon this a bit, whether we can do it tonight or whether we do it as another pop-up live. But the idea is that what you're actually putting on here is the color you're going to see in between the tracks. This is actually going to be the weathering layer. Excuse me. What we will be doing is giving these tracks, we'll do some speckling on them in some slightly darker colors, not tonight, but in general. And then what we'll do is we'll dry brush, there's a technique from the past. We will dry brush the tread areas with our good friend, the Vallejo German black brown. Then we will go over that with some graphite powder. And what will happen is all the areas in between the tracks will have a nice dusty appearance, as befits where dust sticks into the areas that don't have any contact, whereas everything else will have a nice metallic patina. I suppose I could do a demo of that tonight. Yeah, I think I will. But I know this is covering rather nicely because the shiny plastic's disappeared and now we've got a rather nice dead flat finish. Oh, there we go. All done. I'm just going to let those, push those to one side and let them dry off for a bit more. In the meantime, we will do a bit more on the German sand yellow on the body of this. Oh, so let's just play catch up with the comments for a second. Let's hello. Dave Fleming says, okay, that's a good question. So if Western European, you would use darker browns? Yeah, Dave, possibly. But I do find, by and large, a pale colour does, it does kind of, it works. It's bizarre as to how or why it works, but it does work. But I'm just trying to get the, oops, daisy. So I got a thing of a palette of stuff that needs painting here. Those need another coat, and I'll probably find those propellers in a minute. Ah, there we go. There's the little broken bit off of the turret. So yeah, I think I'd use. I think I'd probably use dark earth, a more kind of generic muddy color for something European. But you'd be surprised how you can actually get away with using a quite pale color. So bear with, because I've got to effect a repair here. Oh, right, okay, I'll see where that goes. This has obviously taken a knock on tour. So let's just try and get that in there like so. Yeah, that's good enough for government work. Yeah, that's fine. That'll do. It's a phrase we tend to use a lot in this workshop. I'll do. As Drew says, stand by your results, not your technique. So we're just going to got this jar of the XF93, which is the German light brown DAC 1942. It says here. So we're just going to drop a little bit of Tamiya lacquer thinner with the retarder, and we'll just, oops, daisy. Oh, he's blobbed a bit right on the end of his gun barrel there. Just because I'm using the wrong end. Never mind. So yeah, Dave, I've used dark earth. Oh, what about that? Nails it first time. So we're just going to go over the gun barrel a bit there. There's a follow-up to last week's pop-up live. Yes, these were the Panzer airbrushes. It was somebody on Twitter asked, are they still working? To which the response was, yes, they are still working. I pulled them off the rack here last week and put them immediately into use with no fuss whatsoever. Since last week, since literally the end of last week's live, they've been sat back in the rack again, and I've just pulled them off the rack and started using them again. So whilst we're doing this, just to go back to the talk that often gets asked about airbrushes and can people recommend an airbrush setup and compressor, I would still maintain is buy the best that you can afford. And if that means perhaps foregoing a kit or 3 or 4, in my opinion, it is going to be worth it. I use a Sparmax compressor here, not cheap. I mean, when I got this 10 years ago, it was just under £200, and I think they're now a touch over £200. But it is going to be a bit of kit you are going to be using all the time. Now, you can buy cheaper compressors, and I have one of those little kind of no brand compressors with a holding tank. It worked pretty well for a few years, but it just didn't have the legs that this Sparmax one has. So I would rather forego some kit purchases and get a decent compressor, because as I say, you are going to be using it every time you sit down in the workshop and you start doing some airbrushing, whereas you could spend the equivalent on some cool kits that you think you want to build, but then they end up sitting on a shelf doing nothing. That's just my opinion anyway. And so yeah, I would say if you're really, really serious, dig deep, get something like a Sparmax compressor. And for an airbrush, I would say again, dig deep and get yourself a base model Iwata. I don't know what they are at the moment, but they're probably the Eclipse or something like that. Because again, you're not going to go wrong. Now you're probably thinking, but you're a massive hypocrite, JM, because here you are using your £25 Fender airbrush. Well, that's because being slightly pig-headed, i.e. very pig-headed, I really want to kind of see where I can go with this. rather than say, it's a cheap airbrush and it's going to fall apart, so don't waste any money on it. Well, I bought two. Drew's got one or two, I think. Spencer's got one or two. I can't remember. But I want to use these things, see what happens with them, essentially. So I forgot where I am with these. Right, hang about. Those are... So I've got metal bits. I've got tools here that I've turned them upside down, and I need to do the clasp bits that go on the tank. So but as I say, those are just my recommendations. Other people will recommend different, and it's all based on experience. But as I say, my honest opinion is save up and get the best that you can afford rather than just buying more kits. And in fact, that advice goes back to, and I know everybody's going to roll their eyes now because they're going, not How to Go Plastic Modeling again. Goes back to what Chris Ellis wrote in How to Go Plastic Modeling 5 years ago, 50 years ago, where he said, and I'm stealing from the best here. He said, when it comes to your toolbox, it's worth foregoing a couple of kit purchases to to get the tools that you need to get some decent tools. And I will absolutely echo and agree with that. So Mike Williams says, Iwata Revolution CRBR, just over £100, really good airbrush. Yeah, I would say, I would agree with that, Mike. I would agree with your choice there, because again, I would say if you are getting into airbrushing, yes, you can do it on the cheap, but it's one of those aspects of modeling where, and again, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here, it is a false economy to go cheap. He said, but it's £25 airbrush. But yeah, I would say invest in quality from the outset, because especially if you are, perhaps I'll qualify that a bit. I would say perhaps because if you are coming into this from a fairly fresh perspective, it's better to be starting out with reliable kit. These are annoying. I am using this £25 airbrush with 40 years experience of using airbrushes. So I'm coming at it from a different perspective, whereby if it goes wrong or it doesn't work or it breaks down, then I've got my quality airbrushes to go back on. Having said that, I'm having great fun using this airbrush just to see what can be done with it. But as an initial purchase, I would still say go for an Iwata. Lot of paint goes a long way. Now, see these spare track links here. These aren't going to be as weathered as the ones, the actual working ones. But we're still going to give them a dose of the same camouflage color, because there are things we can do with these further down the line. God, don't you prefer the old days when you just used to paint tracks gunmetal and then dry brush them, and that's it? And that's how we used to do tracks many years ago. And then new ideas came along that yielded better results. But goodness me, up until about 10 years ago, I was still painting tracks gunmetal. Which means we've still got quite a bit of paint in there. all this stowage and sandbags and things, those will be painted a different colour, but at the moment I'm just going to give them just to use up the paint in the cup here. I mean, this is like this is like that fairy story. It's just not. It's not giving up. There's more paint coming out of it. I'll do for that, Jack. Stop painting there. Unbelievable. So I'm just seeing if there's anything else. We've got the wheels, but we're not going to be painting the wheels. We're not going to be painting the wheels at this stage. We're going to be doing something slightly different with them. Oh, another track link there. Oh, now we run out of paint. Hallelujah. Right, okay. That'll do. Right. Just to kind of like do a very, very, very quick demo on what I mean about these tracks. And I'll probably do it on the upper part where there's very little is going to be seen. Actually, we'll probably paint over it, but I need to do this just to demonstrate this tonight. So what we're going to be using is, he's just having a quick look around here for one of his favorite paint brushes. And there we go. That's a good one to do it with. That's a very cheap and cheerful Humbrol 7mm flat brush. That's all we need for that. We've got some curry dishes from Poundland, some little metal curry dishes, which I just need for the paint. And where is it? Come on, German camo black brown. Where have you gone? Goodness me, it's always here. There it is. Vallejo 150 or 70822. They tend to have two color references for some bizarre reason, but this is their RLM 61 or German camo black brown, and this is my go-to chipping color. It's my go-to weathering color in general. But the idea is that you a bit of paint on the brush, and whereas with most dry brushing you try and get rid of as much as possible so that you're only just getting a small amount, with this you actually still need to maintain a moderate amount of paint on the brush, but we'll just demonstrate it here on this end bit. So what we're then doing is we're dry brushing and we're picking up the contact points of the track like so. So that's a little bit too heavy. Let's just get rid of the excess. So as we're going over it like so, we'll probably just go across that way just to pick up the bits in the middle. As you can see, what you're then getting is these raised contact areas are picking up the dry brush colour. All the bits underneath aren't, which is where all the dust and grime would accumulate. So I'm just literally, this is just going to be a cheap and cheerful demonstration tonight, because what I will do is go back and do this probably better next time. But that's about it. So we just, as you can see, already that's a much more interesting, that's a much more interesting effect. And if I was to do some speckling and other bits and pieces on that, it would actually add more patina to it. But I'm just, like I say, this is just a rough and ready demonstration of what I'm talking about here. Then what you can do is, what am I looking for? Cotton bud, a cotton bud, and some dark steel graphite powder. You can use a pencil if you wish. But I'm just going to use a tiny amount of graphite powder. In fact, I'm going to take the latex off and do this, because this is quite fun actually. Come on, graphite powder. I'll do. It's actually quite fun to get it on your finger, and then just go over the contact points like so. So as you can see, it's a bizarre technique, and like I say, this is very rough and ready. But what it does then give you is, actually, that to me is so much better than trying to paint tracks in a metal color and then putting washes and things into them to to get the dusty effect. This is the absolute reverse. But as I say, Miguel Jimenez has done this. Martin Kovac does something very similar. What I would probably do is I would probably, as an intermediate stage, just speckle some other colours on there to build up a bit more discoloration, a bit more unevenness in tone. Then go back in there, then dry brush the colour on top, then go in with the graphite powder. But as I say, as a shortcut technique for getting something that looks a little bit more, I don't want to say realistic, but lending the impression of realism, it is a remarkably simple and ridiculously kind of easy technique to get some nice effects. So if you're wondering in future why I paint my tank tracks a pale colour first of all, that's why. So slap the old latex on. I probably missed it, but are all the fiddly bits attached to the inside of the lower hull? When you say the fiddly bits, Tim, what do you mean by that? Are all the fiddly bits attached to the inside of the lower hull? No fiddly bits there. I've left the running gear off. I left the wheels off purposefully. Which actually we'll do the wheels now, because actually, has that been painted? That has. I know what I've got to do with that, yeah. The wheels. Oh, goodness me, the wheels. It's a Panzer IV, so therefore there's hundreds of the things. Bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves. Started painting this at the Al Murray show festival a couple of weeks ago. A month ago, good lord, a month ago. So unfortunately, because of the exigencies of life and everything, I haven't had a chance to kind of come back and get on with it. But I have, truth be told, been working on my new library upstairs, because I have so many books here in the office that it's all kind of it's all run out of space, frankly. So the spare room upstairs is being converted into a library, but that does mean getting rid of layers and layers of alloglipta wallpaper at the moment, which anybody knows alloglipta wallpaper, it's an absolute nightmare to get rid of. So anyway, I'm just having a look here. I've got a tire black here, but I cannot. What we're going to do is we're going to paint the wheels a dark grey colour. I'm just trying to find my dark grey colour. What we're not going to paint them is black. What did you do on Wednesday night? I watched a confused man from Dudley witter away whilst he was trying to find paints on his modelling workbench. Every other colour except the one I want. Oh, that's annoying. I'll tell you what we're going to do. In that case, we're going to cheat. On olive drab. Come on, where's my... Bear with. I've just suddenly realised that my lacquer paints are all in this tub here. Finally, there we go. LP27 German grey, which is... Paul Milligan, sir, I hope you have a large leather chair ready for your said library, JM. Do you know what? Got one better than that. I've actually got a chaise longue. Oh, any posh, he's got a chaise longue. It's a purple leather chaise longue that actually matches the colour of the curtains upstairs, which is rather nice. Nice plum colour. So, yeah. And I've got a nice little flame effect fire as well. It's going to be marvellous up there. And I'm going to have a general rule up there, which is no technology. No technology will be allowed into the library. So any visitors who are coming round, name no names, but, you know, Drew. And, yeah, anybody who comes in, no phones, no laptops up there, nothing. It is purely a reading room. The only electronic devices up there are the flame effect fire, the table, the floor lamp, and in a couple of months' time, a Christmas tree. But that'll be it. Right. Beautiful. Right. What we're going to do is we're going to paint the tyres here, the wheels and tyres, but I'm actually going to paint them German dark grey. This is the lacquer LP27 from the Tamiya lacquer range, which is beautiful paint. It is. It's probably a little bit thicker than I need it to be, but no, that's fine. It's good for the coverage. So what I'm going to be doing with the wheels here is. Looking for me foam now. There it is. Is I will be painting these in dark grey, but then I will be using a circle mask to go in there and paint the hubs in the Panzer yellow, in the German light yellow, rather light sand. So again, it's a slightly kind of reverse way of doing things, but it does speed things up a bit considerably. You're probably thinking, are we going to sit here tonight and watch you paint all these wheels? Do you know what I'm going to do, actually? I'm going to be a long time if I do it this way. So what I'm going to do is blob of blue tack, or white tack rather, which I have to take the gloves off because the white tack sticks to the gloves. So very big thing of white tack like so. It's so good it doesn't even want to stick to the cardboard. That'll do. It's not going to, goodness me. Right, plan B, that's useless. Plan B is we're going to use some double-sided tape. And what I'm going to do is, because the outer faces are going to be the ones which, frankly, are going to be painted in the sand colour anyway, we'll do the backs first, even though they're going to be hidden, but hey-ho. That does the job easier. All right, that makes short work of this. And we're back. We just had a bit of a power blip there for a second, and it kind of knocked everything out. But we're back. We're back. That was weird. Don't tell the power cuts are starting already. Lol. In fact, I'm really annoyed with this. This has got a really nice smooth coat of paint on it, which I don't like because I think it just looks too pristine. So because I'm going to be going back over this with some of the base colour, I'm just going to go over this with the dark grey and just kind of marble it to break it up. Well, I say marble it. I'm just checking the, yeah, okay. Just checking the battery on the MacBook, but the battery's fine. So, like I say, we just suddenly had the lights flickered off, shut the stream down. I think the broadband went down for a second. So, yeah, that's better. That'll give me a base to kind of blast that with some other colours. So, oh, we've got a rogue soldier there. So, yeah. And the beauty about these lacquer paints is they do dry rather nicely, rather quickly as well. Slow enough to get a nice finish, then quick enough that you can kind of get on with other things. So there we go. That's done. So what we're going to do is, so I said we do a nice short one tonight. We're already at the 45-minute mark, but we have here a scale aircraft modelling scale rule saw and scribing template designed by PP Models. So as you can see, we have been using this for painting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the circle that best matches my wheels, which actually it's that one there. That one there is perfect because there's a slight rim around the edge of the tyres, but that is absolutely perfect, that one there. So we will frog tape. Some people say, is it just like Tamiya tape? Is it not like just like Tamiya tape? Me, yeah, I think it's pretty much the same stuff. So let's just check which one did we want. No, that one there. So we'll mask off everything else. Let's just say if you can't get access to Tamiya tape or you can't afford Tamiya tape in large quantities, then get yourself a roll of frog tape. It's do the job. It's pretty much what you want. So that'll do. We've masked off what we don't need. That's a beautiful fit. Absolutely perfect. So we're going to load up the airbrush with some of the sand yellow again. So a couple of drops of thinner in there. Using the correct side, which is the bit with the scoop. 1, 2, 3 scoops, that'll be enough. A bit of backflush. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Incidentally, what I'm painting on here tonight is quite literally a roll of Poundland gift wrap that, yeah, it works. It works good for when you're doing demos like this, and it's certainly cheaper than going out and buying great big things, reams of paper. So there we go. We've lined that up pretty much with the center of our template there. Get a feel for the paint, and then we'll just go in there. Ta-da! Job done. Yeah, that makes short work of that, doesn't it? And I'm not even going to say there's a little bit of overspray on the edges, because even if you do end up with a little bit of overspray on the edges, don't worry about it, because when you actually put a wash in there, you're going to blend that back in anyway, and it just looks like dust. So again, let's just line that up. Marvelous. That first one was perfect. This one, there we go. Just go in there with the paint. Actually, I'm going to be a little bit more random there. Piece of cake. And the same with this one. So that's the trick. Get rid of the cocktail stick. So suddenly all that terror of painting wheels is actually made a hell of a lot easier. In fact, now that we've got this on this, this might actually be even easier. Not going to be worried. I'm not going to worry too much about these inner ones, because they're mostly going to be hidden by the hull and the tracks. But still, I like to at least make sure that they're done with a modicum of correctness. Now, you can get artists' templates to do this job. You can just, actually, I'm going to pick these off. You can actually just kind of make your own if you've got a silhouette cutter. Again, it's one of those things that if you kind of hunt around, you will find something that does artist templates that I think it's worth the modicum of expense, so that you've got something like this, because you're always going to, again, it's one of those things that when it comes to painting things like wheels, tires, etc., you're always going to find something that's going to do the job. Invest in tools. You know what? We are going to paint all these wheels tonight. I'll tell you why. Because if I stop now and then end the program, chances are I won't paint the rest of the wheels, because I want to go and have some food and watch the telly and whatnot. So and I really do want to get a wiggle on with this, because I get the funny feeling at some stage a Tamiya Hellcat will plop on the doorstep. And I've still got my Spezda Sherman here to, my second one to start, seeing as the one that I was building at the at Warfest, apparently the wrong one came home with me, so I came home with a fresh kit, and it seems that the one that I started is probably sat in a warehouse in Milton Keynes, so we need to definitely get a wiggle on with that as well. And I've got my Spezda Hurricane, which I need to finish off, which was kindly given to the show by Mr. Hills at Antic, so we will be getting that one done, and the Mini as well. And do a library and prepare for a festival of modelling. It's a good job I've taken the next 2 weeks off. Boy, does this make life easier. I have actually masked these in the past with something like Maskol, a liquid masking agent, which works okay, but I'll sit there and wait for the stuff to dry. Whereas you can see here, we are blitzing along with these. Oops. Couple more to go. Then we can flip them over and paint the other sides. So you've done your job. We'll come back and check the comments in a second, but let's just get this part of the project done and out of the way. Oh, that's it. I've done all those wheels. Right, let's just check the comments. Andy Bren says late again. Well, you're not missed much. You honestly are not missed much. So we'll just flop these over and do these ones as well. So yeah, so anybody out there who you're building tank models and you're terrified with the prospect of painting wheels, especially if you're building Panzer IVs, so you always have lots of wheels to paint. There you go. That's how we've dealt with the wheels tonight. We've painted them dark grey. We used a circle template. Then we've painted the primary colour, and that's it. That's it. It's done. And as I say, it doesn't matter if you get a little bit of overspray on these things, because that will actually help you with the weathering. In fact, I seem to remember it was a technique that Spencer Pollard did on his Gamma Goat for the book that he built, and probably for the article he wrote as well, where he painted the tires kind of like a dark grey first of all. Then he went into the hub with the green colour, but he let some of the green colour overspray onto the edge of the tires, which you'd look at that and you think, well, that's weird. Why has he done that? But then when he started putting washes and other effects onto the wheels and the tires, having that little bit of overspray works in his favour. So I think sometimes we can be a little bit too precious about being, massively kind of neat and precise when that isn't required. And incidentally, if you're watching him, the post that he's doing on the Hong Kong 32nd scale Lancaster he's building at the moment, absolutely phenomenal paint job he's doing. But then he is spending an inordinate amount of time perfecting that finish. It's just a pity he hasn't got the time to actually do step-by-step photographs and put that into a book, because I think with the kit still being relatively fresh, it would be perfect for him to do it. And I think a lot of people frankly would go out and buy a book by Spencer on building the Hong Kong 32nd scale Lancaster, even though what he's doing is primarily a stripped down build where he's concentrating on the paint finish. But you've got to see it. We'll post a link to it, but it is, as usual from Spencer, it is a phenomenal finish. I wish I had the patience to emulate him, but I don't. I'm lazy. It's lazy. Oops. So this is making tires. This is painting tires. This is fun. This is. Goodness me. And it's also a good reason why we wear the rubber gloves, because I have very sensitive skin actually, so I tend to have to wear gloves when I'm doing gardening chores and things, because there are so many plants that will bring me out in blisters and rashes and look. So when dealing with lacquer thinner and all that kind of stuff, I do have to wear the gloves, but as a general safety rule, I would say wear them anyway. Now, as always happens towards the end of this, the paint suddenly goes a bit thin. So we're just going to add 2 drops back in there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is that. We have done all the along the wheels live, exciting on the internet tonight. But that's it. That's how ridiculously simple it is to paint tyres using that method. I can't remember whether I need to use this bit of track or not, but no, I was thinking this the other day that I've, through accident or design, over the last few years ago, I've built quite a number of the Tamiya kits based around the Panzer IV chassis, which started off with the Brumbear. I built the Hummel year before last. I built the Panzer IV. Oh, let's get this wrong. It's either the D or the E, the new one. Now I'm building the Panzer IV G. So these are all the kind of the same basic kind of running gear and bits and pieces that go between the kits. But I tell you what, I would still love to build a Wirbelwind, because that's like a Tamiya classic, and I'd love to build a Jagdpanzer Lang, because I think they are gorgeous looking vehicles. And what else? I'd still like to build a Panzer III at some stage. It's one of my favourite tanks. I just think it's a nice compact looking vehicle. Now you're probably thinking, why you're not painting the outer edges of these tracks, JM? For the simple reason that actually they aren't going to be seen on the model, so there's no point. But yeah, the Panzer III, I just think it's a fabulously compact looking tank. It's purposeful. The Panzer IV, ironically, I was reading this about how they kind of share similar design principles. You'd almost think the Panzer IV was a kind of up-armored development of the Panzer III, but apparently not so. They just arrived at very similar design aesthetics. Right, that'll do for that. We have these. Admittedly, these hatches won't be seen because they'll be opened out against the hull. They'll be open, so these will be flat against the hull. But again, being a bit of a OCD completist, I do want to make sure at least they have a modicum of paint on them. And we've still got some more bits and pieces to paint, so let's do them while we've got the paint out. That's what I wanted, that. In fact, it's only these bits that actually need to be in the colour, because, to be honest with you, what I am going to do is mask these off and then go in and do the middle section in a nice rusty colour, in which case I think I get the feeling I've probably just done this completely the wrong way around. In fact, I think I have. Ooh, I think I've remembered why I did this a certain way. Oh well. I'll do for that. And then finally for tonight's tedious essay into model painting, we have the hawsers. So try to remember whether there's one or two in this kit. The answer to that is there is one. There can be only one, and there is. So what we'll do is again, similar principle to the tracks. See, that's already dry. I can already pick that up. Similar principle to the tracks. I'm actually going to do the cable in a pale colour. Then I'll dry brush it, and then I'll give it going over with some graphite, although in this case I think I might do it with a pencil. This is that horrible string that Tamiya give you. I have soaked it in PVA glue, diluted PVA glue, so it'll stop it from fraying. Ordinarily I would make my own from copper wire, but I've got to build this thing straight out of the box, so I'm not allowed to do that. That's that. And I think the final thing we'll do is just to give the airbrush a clean out, like so, which gives us a nice watery mix. I'm just going to go over the model with the horribly thin mix of paint, because what this does is, rather than waste it, I might as well put it to good use, and it kind of melts the surface a bit and makes it go a bit smoother. It's an old car painter's trick, apparently. Again, the pressure on this is so low that there's no vapor coming up at all. Where I'd be spraying something, you know, kind of like large en masse, like Spencer's Lancaster, for example, I would have the mask on and I would have the extractors on. But this, honestly, I can't even smell the paint. It's going on in such low volume. Safety first here, always. No, I haven't done these. I haven't done the return rollers, but again, we'll do them in a similar fashion to the main rails. But I'll do that another night. And that's about it for that. So just give the colour cup a good clean out. Then we'll take the needle guard off, because these always get a build-up of paint in them. As you can probably just see there, a little bit of paint build-up inside the needle guard. So again, a little bit of lacquer thinner. These incidentally are the paper cotton buds now, because I don't think you can buy the plastic ones anymore, but I get the paper ones, which pretty much do the job anyway. And with these, I don't throw them away. I put them in a, whoops, Daisy, I put them in a separate container here, and then when I have my Sunday night bonfire, they go on that. And just give the needle a clean, oops. Yeah, top tip, don't do that. Yeah, that's clear. So that just goes back into the airbrush station, and it will stay like that until I need it next time. Of course, I would have to find one more wheel that I haven't painted, but never mind. So that's pretty much it for tonight's pop-up live. Just trying to change cameras here for a second. Bear with. There we go. That's working. So yeah, this is just like a hour and 9 minutes. There we go. That'll do. So apologies for tonight's lack of thing, but just scheduling gets in the way, and etc. etc. But hopefully you would have seen a bit of actual modelling on the channel for a change. And yeah, I cannot sing the praises highly enough of the lacquer paints, the Tamiya lacquer paints. Really like them. And the new light brown XF93, which goes down to a very nice flat colour. I have, take the latex off. I mean, where I sprayed these last week, and I did these, it was probably about 60% paint, 40% thinner, but that is just so smooth. It's absolutely silky smooth. I wouldn't put decals on it, but it's, yeah, it just dries to the most beautiful finish. I gotta say, actually, in terms of desert colors, desert sand colors, which sometimes I kind of like get along with them, sometimes I don't, because I didn't overthink this. I just literally got on and painted it live last week. Is I've actually ended up with a really, modesty, I ended up with a really nice finish, which I probably wouldn't have got if I'd have sat here and just, you know, tried to think my way through it. I think sometimes you just got to sit down and just get on with things. Just do it. Don't go off and, you know, read a book about it. Actually get on and do it. And as I say, that is a ridiculously simple technique for getting nice looking tracks. That's not how it's going to be finished on the model, because I'm going to go back, like I say, I'm going to do add some speckling layers just to give it a little bit more of a broken up patina. Then I will go in with the German black brown, the Vallejo 150, and then we'll go over it with the graphite to get that nice metallic effect. But it's one of the things again, I've stolen that idea from Miguel Jimenez and from Martin Kovac. But when I was down at Bovington a few weeks ago, I was looking at the tracks there, and the thing that is noticed about them is that by and large, they do have a lot of dust compacted into the into the inner surfaces, and it's only the outer surfaces that show the metallic effect. Now, you could paint your tracks gunmetal and go in there with a wash. The only problem with the wash is enamel washes sometimes do like eating plastic tracks. I just find this to be a far easier, quicker, lazier method of doing things. So I'll just play catch up with the comments, and then we're going to go have some food and watch some cartoons. So Brian Wilton says, is the overspray the first stage of covering it in mud? Yes, it is, Brian. Well, what I'm going to do is on these is what I will do with these is I will then chip them. I will chip the rubber with a sponge and some of that. Now, what I'm going to do is, let's have a think about it. Yes, I will go over that with the German camo black brown and chip it with a sponge. And what that will do is that will just add a slightly darker patina to the tires, and it just lends the impression that they are a bit more pitted and worn. But where you get a little bit, as I say, a little bit of overspray around the edge of that, what would be the painted metal rim anyway, is if I go in there with a wash, it's going to look fine. If it looks fine as it is anyway, actually, you could paint this perfectly, then put dust washes in there and end up with this effect anyway. So that's all I'm going to do with that. And what else have I got to do? Oh goodness me! Oh yeah, Paul Milligan has to say, have you built the figures yet? No. I need an inspiring trip to the Froome Model Centre to get some paints and things before I start painting these. So, yeah, there's only 5 of them. That should keep me going until Christmas. Now, what I'm going to do with the figures, Paul, is I'm actually going to do express on them. I am going to do the basic flesh tones with a slightly darker. Probably, what did I use last time? I don't remember what I used for the. I think it was the tan yellow. Excuse me, it's one of the colours here, but I'm going to be using my old cheat technique, which I stole off of Francois Verlinden, and that is to actually go over the flesh areas with, I always get these two paints mixed up. You'd think after 30 years of owning this tube, 35 years of owning this tube of paint, I would stop calling it raw sienna, because it's not burnt, it's burnt umber. Anyway, I will go over the flesh areas with pure burnt umber, not thinned, just go over it, cover all the flesh areas with some burnt umber, let that dry for about half an hour, then go over it with a dry brush, not dry brush, but a dry brush, and start removing that excess burnt umber. And then what that does is it actually gives you some nice kind of gradiated tones. But because these chaps are out in the old North Africa, they are going to be a little bit tanned. So it's going to be a quick and dirty method of doing the flesh tones. Then I might just go in there with some acrylics just to do some highlights on things like knuckles and on the faces, do it that way. But by and large, it's going to be a very economical way of doing things, because I do not want to be spending another few weeks trying to be a figure painter, because I'm not. Barely a modeler these days. Julian Dallimore says, epic. I'm building the Tamiya 38T, so we're taking advice about painting the wheels. Thanks. Yeah, thank you for that, Julian. On the 38T, what did I do? I think because they were kind of like big wheels, I think I actually painted them grey, then actually painted the tyres by hand. But the get out clause there is that there are only 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 8 on that vehicle anyway, and they're girt big things as well. The one thing I did do on them was I had tremendous fun, because you've got these huge spoke areas to work with, was doing streaking effects on them, kind of mud splashing around them. I had great fun with that. It's, yeah, Panzer 38T, one of my favourite vehicles. It really is. And Brian Wilton says, have you tried the viscous paint? Well, you mean these Leviscus paints? Oh, lascivus. I have tried them, Brian, and in fact, they are a bit. They're designed for bigger projects, I think is the best way of putting it. And in here, in the project box of shame, I do have primed and waiting to use the those paints is my Tamiya biker chap. So I will be using them. Also in here, and a big shout out to Colin at Freight Dog, is the IBG A10 Cruiser, which I have painted in that. Well, it's the strange Cornter scheme, which is the Portland stone and this kind of purple color. Yes, and also almost finished now. Again, probably an evening's work is the Rubicon 56 scale Chevy. Love that kit. That's been great fun. So I'm desperately trying to clear the backlog of overdue projects here due to my own tardiness, so that I can crack on with some fresh ones, like my other Sherman here, the Sylvester Sherman. And for the Festival of Modelling, what I want to build is the Airfix Beach Buggy, and I'm going to be building it, constructing it with that 10 quid toolkit that we got off of Amazon. I'll be painting it with airbrush, but we won't worry about that. In terms of the actual construction, we're going to be using that just to prove that you can put together a model with a basic toolkit, basic toolkit. So that'll be fun. So anyway, look, that'll be it for tonight. We've gone on far too long tonight, hour and 20 minutes, goodness me. So with a bit of luck, we will be back on Sunday with the news show. And what's happened this week? We've had some teasers from TACOM, and we've got some test shots of from Zvezda, and a few other bits and pieces. So yet again, the world does not stand still in terms of the modelling scene. It's rattling along at a frightening pace. Rattling on at such a frightening pace that honestly, I know I've said this before on the show, you cannot keep up with things. There's so many new things coming out at the moment. You either just have to give up on what you're building and do them, or try and finish off what you're building. I mean, I've got these things to finish off. I have to get these things finished off. But goodness me, so many things on the horizon. I'd need to live till about 400 to build all the things I want to build at the moment, or even to build all the things that have come out this year. So anyway, on that note, as always, thank you for watching. I'm sure you've got better things to do in your lives, but I do appreciate it. We will see you on Sunday. Until then, stay safe, stay out of trouble. See you later.